Hey guys, welcome back.
Hey guys, brand new podcast.
Hey, wait a minute. It's my podcast.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Enjoy.
So
Jesus, Leanne.
we were here on Saturday night and we started talking about and I was like, wait, let's stop talking.
Stop talking. We have to talk about this.
Keep it fresh, Jeannie. Keep it fresh.
Don't talk about it.
I'm glad we're all producers of my podcast. Thank you very much. I really genuinely appreciate it because, not everybody sees everything from the same angle. So we were talking before. Have we started, Halston? Okay, we were talking before. Yesterday, we went to see a house, and Allie got stuck in the elevator.
I cannot believe that happened.
So this house is on a big hill, and there's stairs, obviously, and then there's this little bitty 3-person elevator. So we had gone up and down the elevator several times, and Bert and the 2 girls were at the top, and the real estate agent and I were at the bottom in the garage, and Bert pushed Isla in the elevator and said, "Go get Mom and Kendra." And she closed the gate, the door closed. There's no interior light in this tiny elevator. And she pushed the button and it went halfway between the 2nd and 3rd floor and stopped. So we couldn't get her out. I mean, the realtor, the seller's realtor.
So the owner of the home
weren't responding to her phone calls.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
She was calling them and they couldn't get them on the phone. Mm-hmm. And then the seller's realtor and I started looking for like the breaker boxes. We found the breaker boxes. One breaker box had a bunch of water on the floor of the room it was in, which is a little bit of a red flag to start with for buying a house. But I was like, I'm not going in there. I'm not flipping a breaker with a wet floor. So she's like, that's it. I'm calling 911. I'm just going to call the fire department. So she called the fire department and the ladder truck came and the regular truck came. There were like 15 men there in full uniform, jackets, everything, sweating.
Oh my
and
God.
They were like on the 3rd floor and the 2nd floor trying to figure out how to get her out. It's pitch black inside the elevator, so she can't see anything.
But could she hear you talking?
She could hear
to her?
you. She was talking back to us. But then finally, I guess, I don't know if one of the firemen called the manufacturer of the elevator, but he found out there was like a latch at the very top of the door that she could just like push and the exterior door would open no matter what floor it was on. It was like an unlock, but she couldn't see it because it was pitch black. So she unlatched it and they pulled her out between the 2nd and 3rd floor.
That's kind of scary.
It was kind of crazy. Yeah.
But it seems like she handled it really, really well.
Really well. Bert was like, let me make this clear. If I were inside this elevator, I would be ripping it apart.
Yeah.
I would be taking like the panel off. I would
Be
be
institutionalized now.
it would be like, put me in a padded cell. I'm done. Because she was in there for like 25 minutes.
And she was, wow. That's
And
crazy.
she was totally fine. She got out and was like, yeah, that was crazy. We made her take a
That's a
picture
good
with the
story.
fireman. It was a good story.
Yeah.
I know. And then our real estate agent, Kendra, was like, well, I think you should get a discount on the house now. If you want this house, I think we're going to leverage this elevator experience. Say, you should cut a couple $100,000 off this house or something.
Right?
Yeah, it was crazy. But it's a great house. We're going to go back and see it again.
Did
So-
you hear, did anyone when the owners found out, did you hear anything?
No, nothing from the
I'm
owners.
sure they're mortified.
I'm
Oh
sure.
my God, they must be horrified.
A neighbor across the street, this was an open house. So the neighbor across the street had just come to look at the open house when Isla got trapped. His name was Jeff. He was the nicest guy. He was like, you know what? I'm going to go get a hammer. We're going to take the hinges off this door. We're going to take the door off and get her out. Or he goes across the street, comes back, gets a hammer. He and Bert take the hinges off, can't get the door off because it's latched from the inside, that latch we didn't know about. So he was like, okay, well, let's put the hinges back on. Maybe I'll call the manufacturer. And as soon as he said that, the fire department showed up. And he's like, okay, I'm going to go home. It's handled now. So a few minutes later, he comes back just to check in.
Aww.
Everything good. And he goes home again. And then when the fire department starts to leave, he comes back and he goes, oh, so glad you got it out. I don't know if you're really seriously interested in buying this house, but great neighbors. He starts telling us who's living up and down the street. And he goes,
that's so nice.
and I didn't want to say this when we were in such an intense survival moment, but I'm a really big fan to Bert. And I was like, oh my God.
So he knew who he was. Oh, that's so funny.
He did. And the firemen knew who Bert were.
Oh my God.
So, which was crazy. The firemen were like, didn't want to say anything till this was done, but really big fan.
Aw.
So Bert's giving all the firemen tickets to his show.
Oh, that's
nice.
awesome.
That's why we need extra tickets.
Yeah.
I might have a few. We'll talk.
Okay. Okay. What's wrong? Jeannie, your mic's not close enough to your mouth. Halston said. Good old Halston.
Thanks, Halston. Is that better?
But anyway, that was an exciting day yesterday.
That is exciting.
Never a dull moment.
Never.
And
a
you'd
dull
already
moment.
had a totally busy weekend. And
I know.
then, yeah.
Right. We couldn't believe it. I guess the realtor did reach out to our realtor and say that was the coolest family. They were so
Aw.
cool. And this, I mean, what could you do?
Well, if you end up buying the house, I don't think you need to worry about the kids messing around playing in the elevator.
I don't think so. Island won't anyway.
No. I think
won't
you're
at all.
safe.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Honestly, can you imagine the tantrums that some people would have thrown? Like the people that you see at open houses sometimes. I mean, they are really lucky
And
that
hey,
it happened to your family.
Great
And that it was
strategy.
Isla in
Yeah, and not only was it pitch black, it was so hot. When we got in that elevator, it was like 10 degrees hotter than outside. And we were all sweating profusely outside. So Isla was just soaked and hot. And but you're right. There's so many. What can you do? It's not anybody's fault.
Right.
Yeah.
It just
Good
is one of those
strategy,
things.
though. To keep scaring the other people coming to the open house off.
Yeah. We're smart like that.
Yeah, you call the fire department. Everyone's like pulling up, going, "I'm not going in that house."
Something's wrong with that house. Forget it. Maybe we should do it again at their open house tomorrow.
Oh,
One more time. Isla, can you do it one more time? You're stuck in the elevator one more time. Yeah, that was crazy.
she'd get to miss school. Of course she would.
I know, right? She'd do anything to miss school. Anything. Well, I had a birthday party this weekend. It was really awesome. You two were there with
Super
lots
fun.
of other
Super
people.
fun.
Super fun. So we went roller skating.
hmm
How many injuries?
I didn't realize that Steven got injured
Yeah.
until I had to give him Advil at your party.
Yeah. He busted. Kathy got hurt too. Kathy was in a lot of pain afterwards. So I guess I don't know. Roller skating makes me feel really young, but not when all of my
your
cohorts
friends
are
are dropping
exactly.
like flies.
It's
And
like
nobody was
injury,
even
injury.
drunk.
No, you can't drink and roller skate. Can
No.
you imagine?
Yeah.
Although Bert's cousin did show up and ask if there was a bar, and I was like, at a roller skating rink?
So we did a broom ball party for Elijah's birthday years ago, but all of our friends went and played too. And it was at an ice rink, so there was alcohol and 3 friends injuries, 2 broken bones. 2
Oh,
of them
my
had
God.
broken bones. Yeah.
This is why you can't drink and drive.
Yes.
Anything.
This
on
is
wheels.
why adults shouldn't be on ice or wheels, apparently.
I guess now proof positive after my
Except for Leanne.
yeah.
You were fine.
You handled it well.
I handled it well. Bert's a good skater too.
Yeah, you did good.
Yeah.
He's a good skater. He had his own skates. he can't rent a foot disease, he says. I don't want to rent a foot disease. And I'm like, I don't know a single person who's ever gone roller skating and gotten athlete's foot.
Does he own his own bowling shoes too?
I mean, you
I
wear
don't, he doesn't
socks,
bowl
right?
enough to do that, I don't think.
okay.
Not that he skates
I was
enough
about
to
to
do
say,
that.
does he roller skate now?
No. No, but he's that way. Like if we go snorkeling, he will bring his own mask. He's not going to use somebody else's snorkel or mask. He's really freaky like that. So yeah, he has his own skates, his speed skates. But
So funny.
it was really fun. Thank you guys for coming. I had a great time.
Oh, thank you. It was
Yay.
fun. You
I know
guys-
next year I'm 50. Gonna do something big.
Yes. Start planning now.
Yeah, I know. I start
I
planning.
am
now.
too.
I know.
Yeah, both of us.
I know. What are you gonna do?
I don't know.
Any inklings?
Yeah, I think so. I think I actually think it's going to be like like family with kids at that, one of those, like our Flying Flags resort area in Los Olivos where you can rent little tiny homes and cabins and
Right.
safari tents and everyone can like rent and it's going to be
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we can go wine tasting. And I'll just send it to everybody and whoever wants to come can come and whoever doesn't. But bring kids and
That'll be fun.
yeah, I think we're going to do that.
That'll be really fun. You have a long ways till you're 50, don't you?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
It seems like a long way for people who only have 1 year.
It sure does. Bert has 3 years too. Almost all my friends, you and Tom Hayslip are the only ones. Well, no, I guess a few other friends are already 50.
Yeah.
But
When does Sandy turn?
she's same age as Bert, same age as you.
Okay.
72.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she appreciates me telling everybody her
And
age.
then there's Sam who just turned 40.
I know. Well, she's just a jerk
I know.
on a lot of levels. But yeah, no. And Lynn and Eric are really young too. I think they're like 42 or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so I asked you guys to come here today because I wanted to talk about something that has been bothering me lately. And that is civic duties, right? I had a civics class in high school. Did you?
No.
I don't think so. Not that I recall.
Oh, it was part of my we didn't call it U.S. history when I was in high school. They called it government. So there was a government class, but there was a certain section of the class that was about civic duties, right? I definitely don't think they teach that anymore. But I was listening to Dr. Drew on a radio show, not even on one of his podcasts. It was on the radio. I was driving, and he was talking about vaccinating being a civic duty. And I had never thought of vaccinations as a civic duty, but his perspective was really interesting. He was like, I understand all this research about autism and things that they're connecting to, or they are implying or are saying are connected to vaccinations. But he was like, there really isn't enough research to prove that. Really isn't enough. And not inoculating your kids puts everybody at risk. It puts everybody in your community at risk. So to me, that outweighs the possible not proven thread of this may or may not, and we're not even sure. You should get your kids vaccinated. And I thought, you know what? I feel exactly the same. I feel the same. I feel like we're part of a bigger picture. So when he used that word civic duties, I looked up what are our civic duties because I wanted to know. I thought, well, civic duties are like you should vote and you should serve on a jury. But there was one, I'll read them out loud.
Okay.
Because I looked them up at the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website. The 5 duties of a U.S. citizen. Respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. Do not feel that is happening in our culture. That one really kicked me in the butt because I went, that's just not happening. That's not happening. Stay informed of the issues that affect your community. Serve in a jury when called upon. Participate in the democratic process, which includes voting. And to defend your country if the need should arise. Which should we discuss first? Which should we discuss first?
Well, since you're talking about vaccinations, which I know is not on the list.
No.
I feel pretty strongly about it too. I'll tell you where I'm coming from with it. So I did all of the prenatal yoga and was, crunchy and organic food and all of that stuff when I was pregnant and when my kids were babies. But Vivian was born 10 weeks early. She was a preemie, and preemies can't get shots at a certain time because they've got to wait until their adjusted age. So it's like you have 2 birthdays for your child for a while. So she was born 10 weeks early, like 2.5 months early. And
which is terrifying in and of
it's
itself.
horrifying. She spent 2 months in the hospital, connected to everything possible. She had blood transfusions. She had procedures. It was a big deal. She was on a lot of meds. And so my perspective changed a lot with that experience, obviously. One of the things was like, all the natural stuff or whatever. It's like, well, she needs meds. She needs procedures, like just period. She does. Yeah. And then in terms of vaccinations, so she had to wait until she was strong enough to get certain vaccinations. So when you are unvaccinated, when you have an unvaccinated premature infant, you really are hoping and praying that other people are vaccinating and that that somebody isn't going to give some horrible communicable disease to your child. Preemies also have to have an extra vaccination, these extra ones called Synagis, which is very expensive. And so it was like, I went from like earthy crunchy, like going, I'd vaccinated Camille, but I just mean I was, I had a more open mind about people not vaccinating their children.
Right.
Then I thought, well, to each his own, I'm choosing to do this, but I totally get why you're not doing it. But, then all of a sudden to like meds, procedures, and extra vaccinations, this Synagis one, which was really intense. And, Yeah, so it makes me feel, so going through that experience makes me feel when people are like, well, I choose not to, and it's terrible. And when people are judgy about people vaccinating, it makes me angry because I feel like, well, you're not respecting all of the people, not just my baby, but all of the extreme situations, people with cancer, people with immune
Deficiency problems.
There are a lot of different reasons why people have immune compromised, and it just feels like a real self-centered act to go, well, I'm just not going to. I actually kind of lost my dearest friend over this.
Really?
Yeah. I had a best friend. We were best friends since preschool. We had the same birthday. Our moms met when they were bringing in cake on the same day, and we're like, oh, it's my daughter's birthday. It's my daughter's birthday. And then they looked in and realized that their daughters were playing together.
Wow.
And that their daughters were the ones that they were talking about all the time. And we were very, very close our entire lives until I had, with Camille, everything was fine. And then when I had Vivian, I felt very judged by her. And when I was talking about all that I was going through and what a mental shift it was for me to go like, oh, earthy crunchy to meds and whatever. And then to have her judging me about giving these extra vaccinations, which was to prevent, RSV, which is very, very serious for babies in general, but particularly with preemies who are immune compromised. And I felt very judged by her. She said some things that were very superior sounding, and I just thought, I can't. The line was just drawn right then. I thought, no, I am for my babies.
Right.
This is the side that I'm on, and so we aren't. I mean, there wasn't a blowout like where I said, "You're not my friend anymore," or anything. But we really have not talked much. I can probably count on both hands the number of times that we've talked, and Vivian is now 11.
Wow.
So
such a strong feeling, right? Because people who are anti-vaccines feel very strongly about it.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to feel that way completely. I mean, that's part of our civic duty, right?
Yeah, right.
Respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others.
Yeah.
But it should go in reverse also, right? If I'm saying I'm not vaccinating my kid, you do you, I'm going to do me. But I don't know, part of that vaccination thing, when Dr. Drew said it that way, because he was explaining the measles, he was like, the measles almost wiped out our populations, whole populations of people. One shot, and it's almost entirely gone. And now it's coming back because people have stopped vaccinating.
Right. So the only question I have in it, and I agree with letting people have their own opinions, and I really try. Especially now with our political climate, I have very good friends who are on opposite ends of the spectrum with me, and we're respectful to each other, and it's fine. But when you choose not to vaccinate your child, your decision, even though you have the right to do what you want to do, affects so many other people.
Yes.
So it's not one of those ones where I respect your right, I don't judge you. I do kind of judge you because you could be hurting lots of other people. I do have other friends who have immune suppressed children who can't do certain vaccinations, and they are vulnerable.
Right. And it's scary. As some of the things we vaccinate for, polio, terrifying. Could you imagine if your kid got polio? That would be terrible.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that we don't have a good sense what some of these diseases did back then. I think it's like, oh, you have known some old people who maybe have a limp from polio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I do.
That I think that people have that in their craw, that they're just like, oh yeah, you can survive it. These are survivable things. They are not necessarily. That was someone who survived, but lots of people died.
That's right.
But also, this person is not able to live the full extent, the full life that they were sort of given at birth due to something that is now preventable. So, you know,
it doesn't make sense to me either. That I don't know. Maybe I have too much faith in the system, but I have a lot of faith in our system. And I think that's another part of our civic duty conversation I have for later for jury duty. But I do believe in our system, and maybe I'm super naive. Maybe I'm super eyes closed or whatever, but I believe the majority of police officers are good people.
Right.
And I believe that doctors would not give us a shot that caused our kids to have autism. I believe in the system.
Yeah.
And I believe that more people are helped by vaccinating than not.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't know, keeping the public safe is so important, and it is a civic duty. But
yeah, I believe that a lot of the, I believe it's such a privilege to be able to think that, no, but I'm just not going to do this. I always just think, wow, how lucky you are that your family and your extended family has not suffered some huge trauma, some traumatic disease. You haven't had a child with cancer in your family. You haven't had a premature baby or whatever, any of the millions of different reasons. I just think, wow, that's really, really lucky. And I wish people would acknowledge their privilege. It's not just about white privilege or male privilege or whatever. It's, health privilege. Like health is a privilege. And you know what? It can go at any time. It takes one car accident, one illness. And I think that's something that people often don't have empathy for unless they've been through it.
Take for granted. And you're probably right. We haven't dealt with any kind of real, true epidemic in our lifetime, or maybe even our parents or grandparents. Think about scarlet fever epidemics, or the measles epidemic, or
the flu.
Flu. Well, the flu's been bad, but
yes, but in the past when it wiped out, when it just decimated populations.
Yeah, we haven't really had that because of medical science. So
Right.
Maybe that is people are thinking, how bad could it be? What's the likelihood? Measles are almost gone anyway, but they're not. So
No, they're not.
they're not. And I guess they're scary. I didn't know measles were so life-threatening.
Oh yeah, it can sterilize men. I knew
it could make you sterile.
Yeah.
I knew that it could, but I didn't know that it could cause you to die.
Yeah.
But it can. You can die from the measles. I didn't know that. Oh, well. There's my soapbox on vaccines.
Yes.
So respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. How do we get back to that place? How is that taught? How can we?
I honestly, at this point, I don't think it's possible in our country.
You
right
really
now.
don't?
Not
Well, that's
not
hopeless
when-
then.
No, until, and this is my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Until our leadership changes, because he doesn't respect the rights and opinions of others. So if our leader doesn't, and then all the people who love him are listening to him, why are they going to respect what other people are saying in their opinions? They don't, and he doesn't. So I don't think it's possible under our current leadership.
I hear what Jeannie's saying, because I think that in the past, even when different sides have disagreed, there's at least been some modicum of respect for, like, oh, this is what the scientists are saying. Okay, interesting. They may vote against what science is telling us, but there's not a fuck you to science. Like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. Mm-hmm. There's such an aggression that the trickle-down effect, I think, is really dangerous and damaging for the country.
I think it is, yeah. But I'm going to play devil's advocate, because I actually agree with you. But I read something in this other longer piece about your civic duties that said, I don't see it now, it must have been on a different, about supporting your government.
Yeah.
You have to support your government. So where does that leave you when we have the leader we have today that not everybody supports? As if you are trying to be someone who's very civic duty conscious or related or whatever, how do you do that?
So, I always, recently go back to the famous Mark Twain quote, loyalty to country always, loyalty to government when they deserve it. And right now, I do not think our government deserves my loyalty, at least.
Right. But then where do you put your loyalty? I'm totally playing devil's advocate.
I mean, I'm still proud to be an American, and I love our country.
Right.
I just think that we're in really sad times in terms of our leadership.
I think it also means what is supporting the government, because we also, as Americans, have the right to disagree with our government. So
Yes.
that is one of our rights.
One of our civic duties.
One of our civic duties is to speak out against injustice. So,
But no one is really. I mean, they are, but no one is in the way they did in the 60s, where it was an upheaval and people were marching constantly for years for civil rights and for the war and for all the issues that were happening in the 60s. We're not moving like that now as a people. We're not, also, I find it shocking that people don't vote. If you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain about one thing.
No.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yep.
It is your civic duty to vote. So
Yeah.
if you say, I don't like ABC, and you don't show up at the polls, then you're stuck with ABC because of you.
Right.
It's your fault. It's not Mr. Trump's fault, actually. It's your fault for not voting. That's what I feel like. But at the same time, not everybody can win. So then if everybody showed up to vote and Mr. Trump was still the president, how do we, like, if 90% of the country voted and he was still the president, how would that affect anything? Would it affect anything?
well, yeah. I mean, so if 90% of the population voted and he was still the president,
It's impossible, Leanne.
I know
I refuse
it's
to
impossible.
accept that as even a possibility.
Sarah,
I can't even answer that
but
question.
wait, okay. So if Mr. Trump, as running against Hillary, where were the people that were
Well,
against
he didn't
him?
win the popular vote.
No, he didn't. But
that is the really frustrating thing
Yeah,
when
that
you
is the really
go,
frustrating
wow, both. Yeah.
that is really
yeah.
frustrating. He didn't win the popular vote,
He didn't win the popular vote. So,
which always makes me really confused about why the Electoral College exists at all.
I know.
It doesn't feel like a democracy
It's
when
fucked us
someone
twice.
won. And,
Right.
It has.
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I would take Bush back in a New York minute.
Absolutely.
I think everybody would.
We all would.
I think I'd vote for Mitt Romney today.
I know,
Yeah.
totally.
Bring on, Mr. Mitt.
He looks
Come
like
on.
a golden ray of sunshine right,
Right?
now.
Yeah,
Mormon, love it.
they all do.
Give me that Bible. I'm all over it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So true.
So yeah, I don't know how, but we can't be. I have to believe there's some way we can get back to respect the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. How? Because I think that it doesn't work from either side. For instance, I bought a new flag. I've always hung an American flag on my front porch, and I went without one for a while because my flag had gotten really tattered, and I just hadn't bought one. And I put one up again, and Bert went, we're going to get a lot of flack for that. And I went, what are you talking about? He said, a lot of people today think that to wave that flag is basically to agree with the sitting president.
Oh.
And I
Oh,
went,
I don't
No.
believe that.
No.
he gets his information from the internet, which we all know is absolutely true.
Well,
but
a lot of people in California, at least, are flying the state flag of California
Right.
instead of the American flag.
that's exactly what he's saying.
Yeah, because
So-
in California, we tend to vote the way we with like-minded people
Yes.
vote. So,
But that
I'm
makes
seeing
us
that.
separate.
Yeah.
That separates us from the whole.
Yeah.
That says we are better than the rest. And I think that that's dysfunctional. We know better than everybody else because
that we do. No, I'm just kidding.
well, I don't think you are kidding, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with.
Well,
Hey,
I choose to live here for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, beliefs are beliefs, hopefully with conviction. They're not beliefs with wishy-washy.
Yeah.
I sort of, kind of believe, sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, then where would we be if we were all wishy-washy? You have to have strong beliefs. I agree with that. But to not embrace the whole is sick, is ill. That's sick to me.
Yeah.
Not sick like you're a sicko, but like there's something that's dysfunctional. So you have to figure out, I think, you have to figure out a way to embrace the whole. And I use my family at home a lot as an example because we have very different beliefs. I don't live in rural Georgia. I live with homeless. I live with many different ethnicities. I live with many different socioeconomic levels, and they don't have any experience of any of those things that are important to the people flying the California flag. It doesn't relate to their life. doesn't mean that it's okay for them to not try and understand it. But for me to try to understand that they don't understand it helps me embrace who they are as people and not say, someone was over the other night for my birthday and was like, so hard for me to go back home because I can't talk to so-and-so in my family who has very different beliefs than me, and I just can't be around them. And I thought, what a tragedy that you've lost a family member over a belief like that is important, but it must be really rigid if you can't say, I believe something different than you. Our whole country was built on people being allowed to believe in different religions.
Well, and even though Hillary did win the popular vote, it was very close.
It was very close.
So, 48% of our country or whatever it feels differently than I do.
Yes.
So,
how do we embrace that?
I mean, one of my best friends from high school in Northern Virginia, I struggled with her because I know that she feels very differently than I do. And I know she's a big supporter of our current president. But all I ever think about is she's been a great friend to me. Mm-hmm. She's been there for me during really hard times. Right. I miss her. I love seeing her. Right. We don't talk about politics. The few times we have, it has been respectful. Mm-hmm. Even though I get frustrated, but it's always been respectful. But I don't not want to see her. Right. If I go home, I want to see her. Right. I love her, but we're different.
Right. But I think that's the only way we can. Here's what I think. The people who live in California, in my opinion, have to find a way to be the bigger person. And I think that we are tired of being in the mudslinging act that's winning. So I think some people start slinging mud back. And I don't know that will ever get us. That just continues to divide to me. If you think about a family dynamic, not even in politics, we're all a big family because we're one big country. So how do you make a family dynamic work when you have two different personality types? Somebody always has to be the bigger person. I am always the bigger person in my house. Every time with every issue, I'm the bigger person. And sometimes that really sucks. And sometimes I go, but most of the time my brain goes, what matters is the greater good. It doesn't matter that I am taking the garbage out again for the 5th time today. What matters is all my kids are getting their homework done. My husband's getting his work done. And I'm just taking out garbage. It's cool. I'm cool. That's okay. Because the greater good is what I'm focused on. I feel like sometimes each belief system, I guess, gets focused on such minutia they forget about the greater good. Like what are we doing about other issues like education and stuff that affects everybody, not just one group or the other. And I think both groups get lost a little bit in that. And I think it is because of the mudslinging that's been happening with the people that aren't flying the California flag. What do you think about that?
It's so ugly right now. It's just hard to imagine getting back to a place where I think with the whole thing that's been so surprising with the Trump people is how offensive I find him and how racist I find him.
Me too.
And that there are this, massive amount of supporters who don't care that he's that. And that it almost felt like, because you couldn't imagine him even being elected, it almost felt like I had no idea these people existed in our country.
Oh, they do.
But I didn't necessarily know that. Yeah. I knew there were Republicans, and there were many respectable, great Republican leaders who I can understand them getting behind. I didn't get the support, and I almost felt like these people had been lurking in the shadows, like with these really ugly thoughts of, just the whole race, send them back, all that stuff. It's just so ugly to me.
It is.
And it makes me so uncomfortable and so upset to hear it and see these, stadiums filled with people making these horrible chants. And I don't know that I knew that existed in our country to the level that it exists. I knew that it existed, but not to the masses. I have a relative who did vote for Trump and supports him, but he's more of like a an independent, like a libertarian. Like he's more about his money. Don't touch my money.
Right.
He's not necessarily on the whole wavelength, but his whole thing is I know Trump's a bull in a China shop, but I hate the China shop.
Interesting.
So he's fine with how he's like shaking things up and rattling things because he hates the whole government the way it is. And so he's fine with that. But I don't know. For me, it just, no, I just didn't know that to this level that this existed.
And does that make you feel what?
Sad. So sad. Yeah.
Does it make you feel a little hopeless about bridging any kind of whatever?
I just feel like we've gone back so far back. All these, I felt like we had come so forward with, having our first African American president and just having such strong female leaders. And I felt like we were moving forward, and I feel like we have taken leaps backwards, and I don't know how we get back.
Right. Well, I wonder. You can't fix something if you don't know it's broken. So if you didn't know that was existing in this country, how many other people didn't either? So then, if you don't know, if you've got a big boil on your back and you can't feel it, you don't know it's there. And then suddenly someone goes, there's some huge thing on your back. You should maybe have that looked at. Then you can go address it, right? But if you don't know it's there, then how do you address it? Because at a certain point, people who feel, because I think people like who you're describing have had these feelings for a very long time and have kept them under wraps.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if that's how they're really feeling, that's real. And at some point, you can only suppress your real feelings as a human being, no matter what they are, for so long. At a certain point, they spill out. And it seems to be that the current environment has given them permission to let it all hang out. And that's okay. But there's no way we could have addressed that if we didn't know it was there.
Right.
And, something I think about too I see the country as like two people with fists like ready to fight, two different sides. Someone's got to drop the fists and come at it with love and go, you know what? I love this country. I love you, even though I don't agree with you. Who's going to be the party that does that? Because neither one are doing that now, because I believe the people, the Democrats are really trying to fight for the greater good as much as they can. But I don't think the other side sees it that way. So how do you get the other side to see it that way? I don't know. But there's got to be some way to see that we're all ultimately on the same team. I don't know. I was having this debate with someone else. I think we need to get off all of the issues we've been talking about and find some issue that everybody can relate to. What is that issue? Is it education? Like everybody can relate to education. We've been talking about healthcare forever.
I know.
But we can't agree on that.
Yeah, no.
So
we can't agree on education because the Trump administration is wanting to dismantle a lot of the public education.
I don't know. I keep thinking there's got to be a way we can grassroots. Somebody, not me, somebody can grassroots.
It has to be you, Leanne.
It's me. I have to do everything around here.
So a few moms in our neighborhood are trying.
Yeah, right. They are. But there's got to be some grassroots way to go, hey, no matter who you are or what you believe, we can both agree that we need more, teachers need more pay, or we need more services in schools, or I don't know.
Well, you would think even gun control, there's been a lot of polls I've been reading about lately that says most Republicans actually support getting rid of semi-automatics.
Right.
But they won't actually come out and say that.
But why?
Because of the gun lobby, I think.
You mean most Republicans in office?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't, not getting rid of guns, but semi-automatic.
Right.
I saw such a great sign. It's been going around the internet, so everyone's probably seen it. But there was an older guy saying, he's holding up a sign saying, I've been a Republican for 50 years. I've been hunting for 60 years. I've never needed to kill 30 deer in less than a minute. Ban semi-automatic rifles.
Totally.
But don't take away his rifle. Don't take away his ability to hunt.
Yeah.
I'm sure has been doing it that long. He's probably, legally does it and does it everything the right way. But it's so true.
Right.
Like the people who actually, we want to have guns, I trust to have a gun.
Yeah.
But no one needs to shoot that many things at one time.
No, they don't.
That the majority of lawmakers support it, but are afraid of losing the votes because it makes them look like they're weak on guns, afraid of losing the money from the gun lobby, all those reasons.
I think lobbyists should be eradicated entirely.
Absolutely.
I think there should be no lobbying allowed. I think everything should come from the public. What do you need or want from the public? I mean, Bert's uncle started one of the biggest lobbyist
I know. I was going to say
firms.
my brother's the head of a lobbying firm in DC,
Yep,
but he does public power and gas. It's not the same. It's like different.
I don't know. I feel like if there's just a level playing field and there's none for good,
I hear you.
none for bad,
Yeah.
you just take them all off. I mean, Bert's uncle is started this huge lobbyist firm in the 80s. It was one of the forefronts of lobbyists. But I think it has ruined the way we can do, because now the people have no control.
Yeah.
I really believe that our vote does not matter. That what happens with the lobbyists and the congressmen and representatives is what is happening.
Yeah, I think that's reflected in the low voter turnout too. I think that there is a feeling
People
of
have
just
that apathy,
hopelessness of just like, well, they're going to do what they're going to do.
They're buying their vote anyway.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make if I vote? I feel that way and I still vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
I very much feel that way because I go, I feel very much that way.
So I vote in every election, and I've always joked because I even vote in the little teeny tiny ones, and my husband always laughs at me, and I say, well, in case I ever run for office one day, I don't want anyone to ever question my voting record. And he's like, when are you running for office?
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
But I bring my kids, even if they miss school, or if they're late to school, I bring them with me every single time.
Wow. I haven't brought mine every time, but I've brought them with me
Every
before.
time I make them come.
Yeah.
And I make them stand next to me as I do it.
Yeah. I when they were younger, when they were both at our elementary school, they went with me, I think 2 times each person. But Bert and I like to vote together. It's like a date. We've always voted together since we've been together. And he's so busy now that I can't guarantee he's here. So we've started voting by mail together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that we're still voting
Yeah.
together. And sometimes I vote for him if he's not here. Sorry, that's probably illegal. But I know what he wants to vote. So
Yeah.
he's not physically here. So I'll just
You
fill
might
out
have
his
to edit
ballot.
that part out.
Yeah, well, I just help, but whatever. He signs it. He signs the ballot. So it's his vote. But yeah, it's something to me. Perfect segue into
Yeah.
voting. Voting is such a privilege.
Yeah.
Especially for minorities like women
Mm-hmm.
and minorities. I mean, how long have the women had the vote? Since the 20s?
What year was it?
Wasn't suffrage? Oh. Let me look. Hey, Siri. When did women get the right to vote? The 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution doesn't. I am checking it out because you're not just telling me.
1920.
1920. I knew it was somewhere around there. So we've only been voting for 100 years. And when did black people get the right to vote? African American men? Hey, Siri.
Yeah. Because that's a distinction too.
When
Black
did
men.
African American men get the right to vote?
I found this on the web for when did African.
Oh, Lord. 1868. That's crazy, isn't it?
Do you remember when the polls opened when President Obama was running the first time? When the polls opened, this is California, so people in the middle of the country are like, yeah, we didn't have that. But like the line
It was insane.
at the church where we all vote
Hours.
was like down the street.
Hours.
And everyone was in the best mood.
Yep.
Everyone was talking and laughing and chatting. And when they yelled because we were there, like when they opened, the polls are open. Everyone started cheering. People were hugging and crying. Like
Right.
it was so happy.
It's very powerful.
The rest of the country's probably like, that didn't happen.
No, probably didn't. No, but the line was forever.
As
I
my
think
dad
we
always
waited
called
forever.
California the land of fruits and nuts. Like that. He's like, you guys do things differently out there. Yeah.
We do. That's true. But
But I loved the optimism.
Yeah.
And the feeling and the excitement, and that it was like everyone was out to vote.
Yeah, everyone was out to vote. I remember being in high school, and I remember when I was a young high schooler, so I was 17 when I graduated high school. But I remember as kids turned 18 throughout our senior year, it was a big deal because they had the voter registration form in our office, and on that day you were like, okay, today's your birthday, go to the office to get your voter registration form. Everybody was so excited. It was something to really celebrate.
We have a bunch of friends. Unfortunately, my son just misses it at voting in the next election.
Yeah.
But Billy Fisher will be voting in the next election. I have a lot of friends whose kids will be voting in the next election who my son is friends with. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yeah. It was such a thing to celebrate when I was a kid. People could not wait to get to vote, to have their voice heard.
Well, and just to tell you, so I voted for my first time ever voting was in a primary in 1987 because I wasn't 18 yet, but if you were going to be 18 by the time you were voting in the presidential election, they let you vote in the primary.
Oh.
And this is funny because my dad was a Republican and my mom is a Democrat. Hardcore. She's screaming liberal.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a family with opposite ends, but my dad is a Republican. Was a Republican only for one reason.
What was that?
He is pro-life. Was pro-life.
Ah.
So he voted on one issue.
Right.
The man would wrote checks to every organization possible in terms of NPR and the arts and all that. So he totally supported, socially he was a Democrat, but he voted as a Catholic because he was pro-life. My mom, on the other hand, was a Democrat. They were married for 51 years and she used to come home and say, I canceled you out. I canceled your vote out. And he'd be like, but that means your vote didn't count either. And she's like, no, I don't care. It doesn't matter. I canceled you out.
I negated you.
She thought that was so funny because she totally needled him on it. But because I knew my dad was Republican and my mother is a lady and doesn't talk politics, or didn't at the time. Now she does because she hates Trump so much. But I didn't know that she was a Democrat and that he was Republican. I just thought our family was Republicans. And I'm the youngest. We never talked about this. So I voted for Jack Kemp.
Oh, God.
Who was a Republican.
Yeah.
In my first election. And then he didn't win, obviously, because Bush won that one, Bush Sr. But I voted for Bush Sr. in my first election, too, when I could vote for president. And so I was registered as a Republican. And I remember having being in college and having a conversation about politics with someone and them asking me about how I felt on certain issues. And I answered every question very clearly because I had very strong thoughts. And they're like, you are not a Republican.
Just FYI.
And I was like, oh.
Okay.
So when I went the next year, I changed. And I was like, I'm registered as a Republican, but I'm not that. That's not me.
Never mind.
Just kidding. And then I
Just
voted for
kidding.
Clinton. So there you go.
That's really funny. But you're Canadian, right?
Yeah, I'm an immigrant. So the first time that I voted in this country was last year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Do you vote in Canada? I'm so ignorant of the Canadian.
I did, but when I was a resident, but I have not voted. So I have had a good chunk of adult life without voting.
Can you send your guy here? I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like that guy too.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
So what was your impression of the American voting experience?
When I finally voted?
Yeah.
Well, I was very excited to finally have a voice.
Right.
We could have
And
used you in a few other states.
I know. And in a few other years too.
Yeah.
My immigration process was sort of just gummed up. A lot of crazy things happened. It was a very long, drawn out process. Literally, the building where, back in the day when I first was applying for, I've been here legally the entire time.
Yeah.
But when I was applying for permanent resident status, the immigration building in Orange County that housed all of the records burnt down.
Oh my God.
It literally burnt down. So I had to start from scratch.
Oh
it was
my
sort
God.
of computers were around, but it wasn't like they hadn't digitized everything.
Yeah.
So, so it was a very long, drawn out process.
Wow.
But, I was very excited. I mean, we took pictures and we sort of commemorated, and it was a date. Richard and I went on a date and talked about it a lot with the girls, that it was really exciting. And they were like, wait a minute, how old are you, Mom? Why is it your first time voting in this country?
And then you had to watch the results that night.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, but it wasn't in that one.
Oh,
Yeah,
it wasn't?
It
Okay.
wasn't in that one.
Okay.
So there's a lady in our neighborhood, Jane, who makes, what are they called? Voting bread or something? Have you gotten one of these? Okay, so
And she's my neighbor. How did I not get that?
I don't know, but I did, and it was awesome.
Well, we'll have to.
She
You're
makes-
starting something,
is it-
Leanne.
okay.
Jeannie's pissed.
I'll have to look it up. I'm going to say the wrong thing, but she makes a bread that women made before women could vote. That they would take.
Called suffragette bread.
No, but they would. No, it's not suffragette bread. But they would bring it to men who voted, like to say thanks for voting.
Oh,
I think it was kind of a bribe, sort of are you going to vote this way?
Yeah.
Good. Well, when you're done voting, I'm going to give you this bread. But she made all this homemade bread for voting for the last big election. And anybody she saw that had an I voted sticker on, she gave them the bread,
oh.
which I thought was really, really cool.
Wait, in our last presidential election, or just the last election?
I don't think it was a presidential election.
Okay, good. I was going to say because that bread is bad luck, and I don't want
Bad
it.
luck. No, I don't think it was that election.
Okay.
It seems like it was more recent than that.
Okay.
But I
She probably didn't give it to me because it's not gluten free.
probably so, because I doubt seriously it was gluten free. But I after talking and thinking about Jane and how she does that, I wonder why we don't as a culture celebrate that more and make it less of a drudgery or I got to go vote.
Yeah, actually, Jane is a good example of this. She has a running date night with her husband in the lead up to an election where they sit down and they call it, she had a cute name for it too, like the type of date that she has where they go through every proposition and they educate themselves together. They have like a date night. They have wine. They have,
That's awesome.
They have snacks.
That is
and
awesome.
Bert and I do that too.
Yeah, because you get you get all your different in the mail. You get your League of Women Voters.
Yep.
You get all the different information, and then everyone feels a different way. So I literally like make my checklist, like because I do my. This is another thing my mom taught me, which I thought was so funny is. When I was younger, and I'd say, "But I don't know all the candidates," and her answer always was, "When in doubt, vote for the woman. If there's a woman, vote for the woman. If you don't know,
Right.
vote for the woman." And I was like, "Okay." So I totally would
You do that. Bert does that too, actually, because he's like, women are so much more level-headed and they're problem solvers and they're
because we're always voting
men
on
are
like
all
a
about
gazillion
ego.
judges, and I'm like,
Yeah.
women.
Yeah. But Bert and I usually do this like I read in bed almost every night, but when I get the booklet, I will read it because he's dyslexic. And, sometimes the way that they write
it's
those
very
propositions
confusing.
Yeah.
I
is
believe
very
it's
confusing.
deliberately confusing.
I think it's
sometimes.
deliberately confusing sometimes too. So he'll read it and go, I have no idea what this said. So I started just reading him the booklet, and then I would say, I would check my vote because it gives you a little like worksheet where you can check what
Yeah.
you're going to vote on each issue. So I just would open that up and then fill out my ballot by mail. I'm done voting in like 5 minutes. But I can't vote without at least reading that booklet
Yeah,
and understanding what I'm
absolutely.
voting for. And it takes me maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah, the propositions are so confusing sometimes.
They are
They
confusing.
because
really
the
are.
ads too are very misleading.
Oh, absolutely. And you think, oh, well, I
The
I want our
dialysis clinic
schools to be
in the last
good. Or,
election?
Ugh.
I don't want, yeah, exactly.
So confusing.
The scare
That one
tactics.
really
Oh my
confused
gosh,
me,
that was
yes.
horrible.
Yes.
I had to ask doctors about that one. I have
Yeah.
a few family members, and I was like, "What's the story with this one?" And they told me what to do, but I was like, "This is confusing."
Okay. Halston's going to the potty, everybody. Oh, I wonder if he's not feeling well. Ruh-roh. I wonder if he's not feeling well.
Oh, I hope he's okay.
I hope he is too. His color's not great.
Hmm.
He's only called in sick one time ever.
Wow,
And,
impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive.
Halston is a good guy.
He's such a
He
great
is
guy.
a really good guy.
He's a really great guy. He is. He's a great guy. So maybe that's what we should do. Maybe coming up to the next election, we should all make a concerted effort to make it
More
a positive. Yes, a party, positive.
You know what we could do? I mean,
What?
depending, obviously, there's lots of candidates that are the bigger ones. But when there's all those propositions, someone could have a party and everyone gets like assigned one and does the research on that one.
Right.
yeah.
That's
And
a good
gives,
idea.
Like then
great
presents
idea.
their thing gives
Pros and
both
cons,
sides
yeah.
and says who's supporting which.
Do you know what? I saw
Right.
some statistic
That get people
about
excited.
how many kids like Billy Fisher are going to be turning 18 before the next, and it's like millions. I
Yeah.
mean, millions in this country. I think it would be so great if all like the parents of the teenagers got a group of those teenagers, like got these
And had them do
grassroots
this.
groups. Yes. And had like a party and like
Yeah.
really made it fun
Yeah.
and festive, but educated them and really got them excited about this civic duty.
That would be great.
Yeah, civic duty is something that is very selfless in a certain way, community oriented, whole oriented, not self, not even though at the end of the day you're voting what you believe. It really is the same as the vaccination. You're trying to take care of the greater good of the whole country based on your, beliefs and your understanding of what's being presented. I think that is so important too, to be able to understand an issue and to try really hard to understand the opposing opinion. Not to agree with the opposing opinion, but to understand it, because for almost every issue, you can find a common ground. And that common ground is where you can take action. So the willingness to not get 100% of what you want for either side and to be willing to get 100% of the common ground, I think would be so positive to look at those propositions, the pros and cons, and go, well, what's the common ground here? Is there a common ground? Maybe there's not. But for most things, I think one can be found if a person looks for one. And if maybe that's the perspective with voting, it would be less contentious. I feel like everybody's just like, rah, rah about voting. I don't want to vote. I'm going to stand in line forever and then I'm not going to get what I want anyway. So what's the point? And to make it celebratory that we even have a voice and to be curious, I think to vote is to be curious, to be curious about how this is going to turn out and what we're going to do. Are you feeling okay, Halston? Okay. I'm worried about you. All right. Well, let's move on, shall we? Are we good with voting?
Yeah.
Jury duty.
Jury duty.
Jury duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So by not being a citizen, I was also excluded from jury duty for many years. And so I'd always get the thing and I'd have to fill it out and say, I'm not a citizen.
Right.
And Richard gets called every year and a half.
Me too.
Me too.
On clockwork.
Me too.
They
Yeah.
freaking love me.
They love me too.
But I finally so I became a citizen in 2017. And in 2018, I got called to jury duty for the first time.
Wowza.
And
Fresh meat.
Yeah. I mean, I went willingly. I mean, by willingly, I was grumbling because there's a lot of organizing of kids and,
Yeah.
it definitely disrupts your life. But I definitely willingly went and I was in the box and made it for a couple of days through. They asked all the questions and I was ultimately dismissed because the case was a gang shooting. This guy had shot and killed somebody. And they asked, one of the main questions is, has anyone in your family been a victim of violent crime? And they asked, my cousin was murdered. He was shot and killed. And I had to disclose that. And when the judge was asking questions about that, she asked when it happened. And, when you talk about something that's traumatic or a hard thing, I think it's very easy to just dwell in the facts and you have your story and it's well, this is what happened. And, and there's no emotion. But when people start probing for the sort of the sensory stuff comes back. And I burst into tears when I told her because I realized that it was coming up on, this many years and I couldn't believe it was this many years ago. And just when I said the date, I burst into tears.
Oh
and
my gosh.
When I went home that night, I had to pick up Vivian from the Gruzins because they had gotten her after school. And Eric was there and he said, yeah, you're going to get dismissed tomorrow. Yeah, you're getting dismissed. They
they
can't
You're
have
too
somebody
emotional,
bursting into tears over this. And he's like, oh, good move. And I said, I swear to God, that was not a ploy. I was not trying to manipulate the situation and get out of jury duty. I was taken aback. I mean, you're there, like all the spotlights on you. It's this filled courtroom.
Yeah.
Everyone's staring at you, waiting
Yeah.
for your answer. And it brought up all of how traumatic that was. So that was my one jury duty experience.
Your one jury duty
Yeah.
experience. I know the only dread I have about jury duty is the organization of my kids.
Yeah.
That's really the only
Yeah.
thing that I go, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare, that part. But I get summoned every 18 months at least, and I have for years. I've served on a jury once, and I was dismissed from a jury once. And before I served on the jury, I actually wanted to be called until I had kids. I was never never summoned until I had children. And then I was constantly summoned after I had children. I don't know why. I've always been a registered voter since I was 18 years old. So, but for whatever reason, I popped out a baby, and that shit started showing up at my door. And until a certain age, you can say, I have a kid, I can't come. But after a certain point, too bad, you have to come.
Now
Yeah,
they're
it's
like,
an
no
inconvenience for
excuses.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is an inconvenience for everybody. And I really, for my personal self and my work and all that, don't mind. It's only that
The inconvenience with the kids.
the kids is really hard. But
I felt actually an added responsibility to show up and not make any excuses, because some of the people who did show up, it was like there was this woman who was breastfeeding. They didn't have, they were not at a high socioeconomic level. Her husband had to take time off of work to be there to have the child like in the hallway so that she could go out and breastfeed. And the judge was like, why didn't you get out of this? She's like, no, I'm sending you home. And she's like, well, I thought I had to, I don't have extenuating circumstances. She's like, you breastfeeding a 2-month-old.
Right.
Go
Go
home.
home.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
right.
But and there were a lot of people who, aren't getting paid,
Right.
and who really are relying on every single paycheck. And, it's really the least that we could do, those of us who can afford to be there.
Yeah.
You know?
Those of us who can afford. Yeah. You loved being on a jury, didn't you?
Well, no, I don't love it. They love me.
Oh, they love you.
Everybody loves you, Jeannie.
I've done it twice. And the funny thing is the first time, so everyone always when you get called has try this, do that, this is the best way to get out. So at the time, this was before kids, I was working at Playboy, and my boss it was a really busy time of year, and he did not want me being on jury duty. So he basically said, if you get put in the box and they start asking you questions, they'll ask what you do. Just say, I work at Playboy, and they'll think you're too liberal and they will excuse you. So I get to my time, I end up in the box, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I work at Playboy. And they're like, okay, so the next juror. And I was like, wait a minute, you don't want me. But they kept me on that jury. And then moving forward after that, once you stay on a jury and you come to a verdict, every time you go into that box, they'll say, have you ever served on a jury before? And you have to say yes, because you're under oath. Did you come to a verdict? Yes. How many times? Twice. So now I've had it twice. And so now they really like me because I've sat on a jury twice and we came to a verdict both times. So I kind of am screwed. I'm always going to get stuck now.
But that's the thing. Why,
But I'm doing my civic duty.
We shouldn't try to get out of it, right?
I know, but it is because I am
It
an
is
independent
inconvenience.
contractor and I
Yes.
work from home.
Totally.
It really does mess with my work big time.
I know. And that's
Yeah.
the bad part.
At the same time, though, if anybody in my family, God forbid, had the need to have a jury adjudicating them, I would think, I want Jeannie Turbo on my jury. Do you know what I mean? I want educated, compassionate people on the jury. I don't want some of the people that ended up in the box with me. I was like, oh God, please send her home.
Yeah, see, that's
We
the
had
problem.
people in the
Send her
box with us.
home.
There was this one woman who was Asian who I'm telling you, and I didn't realize it until we got into the jury room, understood very little English and spoke very little English. And I was like, I don't know that she got half of what happened in there.
Right.
And so both of my verdicts were not guilty. And honestly, both times there was a pretty good chance that the person did commit the crime.
Right.
but they did not by any stretch of the imagination prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. There were definitely holes that they could have filled in.
Right.
But it was not, there was too many questions that they couldn't have done it and that they didn't fill in those holes. And I was like, you can't find this person guilty. Yeah, but he probably did it because he was there, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but
probably
they didn't
not
call this person who was
definitely
also with him. Why didn't they call that person who could have actually said, like
corroborated or not?
Yeah. So it just was there were too many questions, but that, you always vote as soon as you get into the jury room. And both times it was like most of the people found that person guilty, and there were a few of us who didn't, and then had to walk those people through it and be like, they didn't prove it. But that woman who didn't really understand was like, no, guilty. And I was like, no, like, and it was so hard to explain it to her. And I finally had to like send a message out to the judge that either we need a translator or you have to send an alternate in because she does not know what was happened.
Right. She didn't know.
I'm like, how did she end up?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I had two. One, the first time I got called, I got placed on a jury. It was a 10-day trial. It was a man who had sold stolen guns, involved the FBI. It was a really big trial. I thought, not really big. Obviously, it was not. It was 10 days, but it was 8 days of the trial and then 2 days deliberating. I think that's right. Yes, we came back on Monday, so really I was there 11 days. But that really upset me, that experience, because when we got back in the deliberation room or whatever it's called, two of the jurors who were older gentlemen, they were both from Russia or Ukraine or somewhere. They sounded Russian, but they may not have been Russian, stood up together and said, the police are corrupt and we are not voting guilty. And they were immovable. We talked, he was completely guilty. I mean, like they dotted every I, they crossed every T. And at the end of the second day, we called the judge in, and because we were like, we're a hung jury. We can't, these two men are immovable. And we have one young woman who is a wardrobe person who's like, I have already lost 2 weeks' work. I cannot afford to come back here next week. She was in a full panic. Like, I'm going to lose my apartment. We've got to come to some conclusion. People were just coming undone, right? So the judge comes in. No one even says anything. And the judge says, I don't want a hung jury here. Keep talking. And we didn't even talk to him. We didn't even explain anything to him. So none of us had ever been on a jury before. None of us knew that we could still say, yeah, it's a hung jury. We thought he was basically saying, yeah, you can't do that. So you're going to have to come up with something. So that was early Friday. We talked all day. And these two men were like, nope. Came back Monday. Nope, sorry. Not going to vote guilty. And so we all just went, well, we can't have a hung jury. Not guilty? I mean, we can't stay here forever.
Wow.
All of us turned not guilty.
That's one of the questions they ask now is, do you have a problem with you? What are your thoughts on the police?
My God.
Do you believe that the police are...
yeah, that was what happened to me, the second one. I started crying. I was so upset. I'm so upset now,
God.
just remembering it, because I kept going, these two fuckers came in here with some preconceived notion about what the police, we listened to.
Or they were planted.
There were like five police officers.
No, they got in there on purpose, I'll bet.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
I was so devastated that I changed my answer, because I believed I couldn't stick with my answer, because the judge came in and said, I don't want a hung jury. Keep talking. So we all thought that meant, well, we have to have a verdict. I just wasn't familiar enough with the legal system to know
so frustrating.
that we could actually have said, no, actually, we are truly at an impasse. We are fucked. We can't get to it. So at a certain point, we all just looked at each other and went, it's 3 days we tried to move these men. For 3 full days. Wow. I got people babysitting my kids, picking up my kids, feeding my dogs, walking my shit. I was like, I can't. This one girl is like crying. I'm going to lose my apartment. I can't sit here anymore. Not guilty. I mean, she turned like on Friday, not guilty. Everybody but these two fuckers
Oh my God.
said guilty. And they turned it. And I cried in my car. I cried all the way home. Came home and called Bert, and I was like, I can't do that again. That was the worst experience of my life.
Okay, so as bad as
I felt terrible.
as bad as like it messes with my work, I have found both experiences positive of mine. So hopefully you'll maybe have a more positive one in the future. But I made friends. Like there was this one girl who it was like, you know how you can kind of look around and like, no, like she and I'd be friends. Like, you get the eye contact and you're both like, yeah, if we get stuck here, we're going to have lunch every day.
Yeah.
So I became friends with this girl and we would go to lunch every day. And it was funny because she was like, neither of us were the foreperson, but we were both, when we went back, we were like, he probably is totally guilty, but you can't find him guilty. They didn't prove it.
Right.
And we were the ones who convinced, because when you do the vote, it was like half guilty. And we were the ones who convinced everybody, she and I together, that he was not guilty.
Right.
But only in LA does this happen. So she and I had, exchanged numbers, kept in touch. I haven't spoken to her in years, but we used to text occasionally.
Yeah.
And I'm watching a commercial, and it was the commercial with the dad was going out of town on business, and the mom and the daughter outside the car, and the little girl goes, "Daddy, I have something for you," and holds her phone up to him and sends him like a picture or something. And the mom's like, "I have something for you too," and holds her phone up, and it was like, a different. It was her.
How
so I
funny.
text her. I'm like, "Hey, are you in that Verizon ad?" She was like, "Yeah, that's me." I'm like, "Only in LA does your jury friend end up in a commercial."
In a commercial, that's
funny.
great.
Years later, you see her in, and you're like, "That was my friend on the jury." Yeah.
So funny.
Richard was did jury duty, and he sat on a jury, and we were walking the dogs like a couple weeks later, and ran into one of the guys that was on the jury with him, who lives 1 block away from our house.
Wow.
We had never seen him before in our lives.
Crazy.
Before this.
crazy.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's really weird.
I mean,
Yeah.
LA is so freaking big. 1 block away. He lives right in.
That's so crazy.
Richard's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I live there." And he's like, "I live there."
That's crazy.
Because you're intensely close with these people for 2 to 3 weeks. You're with
You
them
are.
every day, all day.
Yeah.
And so, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Yeah. It actually, until we deliberated, was a great experience because you live in a bubble.
Yeah.
You function with the same human beings over and over again. Even in this big city, surprisingly, you just are so, you're either completely anonymous or you're in your small package group.
Right.
So when you do something like jury duty, you are forced to talk to people outside of your realm.
And it's usually a very diverse group of people.
Extremely
it's
diverse.
completely diverse.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that sense of community that was larger than the community I lived in. I was so into this process. I was listening. I was taking notes. I really was super excited about it until that deliberation.
Yeah, that's horrible.
To this day, feel like a horrible person because I came home and told that story to Eric and Lynn, who are lawyers. And Eric was like, you could have still said hung jury. And I went, no, I didn't. Because if I could have, I fucking would have.
Yeah.
Because I was not comfortable with the way that went down. But I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about the legal
Well,
system
and the judge
in that way.
did not handle that well.
He did not handle that well. He should not have presented that in that way. Yeah. And Eric said, well, yeah, he wanted a verdict. That's what all judge wants, a verdict. They don't want, it costs the taxpayers money to have a hung jury because now they got to try them all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want that. He doesn't want that on his record or whatever. He wants it over and move on. And I was like, but it was so unfair. And then the second time I went in, I got put in the box and it was a drunk driving case. And the defense attorney was like, tell me what you think about the police. And I said, I love the police. She's like, well, what do you mean? What's your like belief system about the police or whatever? I was like, I believe they're underpaid. I believe they are here to serve and protect. I believe that there's corruption in every community and in every field of business. But for the most part, the police are good people who have pure intentions, who want to keep us safe. That's their job. And she kept asking me, but what about this situation? Would you believe him if he did this? And I'd go, yeah, I'd believe the police. Would you believe him if he said that? Yeah, I'd believe the police. I said, obviously, if you have an individual on the stand, you have an instinct as to whether or not you think they're telling the truth. But if you're asking me a blanket statement, do I believe the police? My answer is going to be, yeah, dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
totally.
like, okay, I did, aren't you supposed to believe the police?
Yeah.
I guess I am a white person. I am not a person of color. I'm a white woman. I'm not someone who has any kind of adverse experiences with police. So I'm not coming from that point of view. I understand that many African American people don't trust the police, and I understand why. But that's not my experience of the world. So I can't say based on your experience of the world, I definitely don't trust them. I felt like I should be honest, and they literally were like, "Bye-bye."
That process of being questioned in the box and listening to them question other people was fascinating.
It was.
It was absolutely fascinating. And it was like you can spot from a mile away when someone's trying to get out of jury duty.
Totally.
You're like,
It smells like a bad shoe.
no, totally. There was this girl on my jury that was ultimately dismissed, but it was ridiculous. So this was like a gang shooting, and that one of the questions was like, how do you feel about gangs? She's like, I think they provide a great sense of community for young men who often don't have fathers, and I support gangs. She was not like, by the way, she wasn't a gang girl. Like,
Yeah.
she was totally,
It was like
she
me,
was working.
if I said it.
No, exactly. She was working the system, and they were like, really?
Uh-huh.
You do? So what is it that you like what is positive about gangs? And she was like, yeah, it's a sense of community. Yep, I'm not changing my mind about this. And she was so,
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
it was so irritated. And I was like, really?
She has a lack
Okay.
of civic duty.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's
Yes.
trying to get out of jury duty.
She was just like checking her watch, like,
It is a
are they
hard
gonna-
thing, though. I wish, and I know this is wrong, but part of me wishes that all jurors were like professional jurors.
Yeah.
Like that's what they did
That was
for
a
a
full-time
living.
job.
Yeah, but I mean, I know that's not fair, and
Because you have to get the different,
Yes.
trying to create that perfect pool. I mean, obviously in the biggest cases, that is a full-time job for someone. They bring
Yeah.
in that juror specialist
Yeah.
who comes and sits next to the lawyers and tells them who they want on that jury.
Yeah.
And they know, and they, study just the way the person's sitting, the way they're talking, how they're answering questions. It's amazing that that's a full-time job, and those people make a lot of money.
Yeah, right. I don't know. There's got to be some way to balance your $15 that you get which is, at least is something, I guess, but it is a lot of time and commitment.
oh yeah.
And I want to do that civic duty. I wanted until I had that bad experience. I really wanted to do that. But that's, again, I think another, I don't know. The country's been around for long enough now that I think we really do forget what made this country happen. The beliefs or how people were living that made them desperate enough to come to a wilderness and develop land to just be able to believe and to talk about what they felt and believe openly. How repressed or oppressed
Yeah.
the world was until this country was made. And now, vote schmote. Jury duty sucks. Here's how you get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
yeah.
It's not
Honestly,
cool.
that's the prevailing sentiment about jury duty is just, I mean, if you say I've been called to jury duty, all you really hear from people is ways to, oh, well, I heard you can get out of it if you do this.
Yeah.
And it's,
Or I
mean,
hope I don't get called.
yeah,
I get
it's
call every day.
the negativity of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, like, it is extremely inconvenient.
Yes, it is.
It's a pain in the ass, but there is just such negativity about it. And it really was kind of a fascinating experience.
I've served both times I served was downtown.
Mhm.
And the only golden ray for me was when someone said, because I always went and served downtown, you can get that moved to Van Nuys. I
Yeah.
was like, well, what?
Yeah. Me too. I served in Burbank. Both times I went
I
to
was like,
Burbank.
oh my
really?
God. So
I was
that was
downtown,
life changing. No.
Oh,
When
no,
they-
you can request
Just so when you
yeah.
get called to downtown, you just call, when you get your summons, call the number and say, I'd like to have my service moved to the Van Nuys courthouse, and they'll move you to the Van Nuys courthouse.
Van Nuys has a lower level.
Yeah, it'll be much less interesting
Yeah.
trials.
And Burbank, it goes like Van Nuys, and then Burbank, and then downtown as far as like the intensity and level.
So both of mine
I'm
were downtown.
fine with less intensity.
Yeah,
because
both mine were downtown, but there's great restaurants downtown. That was the only positive.
Yeah. Burbank was awesome. There's lots of places to go to in Burbank.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No,
you
one
can
time
walk
was
right
in
there.
Glendale, actually. One time was in
But
Glendale.
yeah, so
one
that's
was in
not,
Burbank.
now I get assigned to Van Nuys, which once you switch it once, they'll keep you there.
They didn't do that for me.
Oh.
I switched it to Burbank, and then the next time when I got dismissed for the police was in Glendale.
Oh,
So I don't know. Bert gets called all the time too.
yeah.
And that is so difficult because I'm like, oh, he's never here. So I always have to move it. And he wants to go. Like he wants to serve on a jury, but he gets dismissed every
I'm sure he will be. Of
single
course.
time.
Yeah.
Every time he'll make some comment that's really how he believes, and they'll be like, dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. What else? Defend the country if need should arise. Are you guys ready to defend the country? How would you defend the country?
Oh God. I
Throw
pray
books
that
at people
it
and they
never
come.
happens.
Me
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Me too. But in saying that, Bert and I were on, and our kids were on a flight to Atlanta this summer. And there was a group of, I think, 18 or 20 young men going to boot camp
Yeah.
at Fort Benning. So they were all on our flight.
Dressed in their fatigues and everything.
No, they weren't in their fatigues.
okay.
They were in regular clothes because boot camp started the next day. They all had all their hair. And one of them recognized Bert when we were boarding and flipped out. And as they're boarding, Bert's in first class. We're in coach, but Bert's in first class. And every single military young guy came through and was like, oh my God, it's Bert Kreischer. So at the end, Bert said, just tell everybody we'll wait at the end, where you get off the plane, and I'll take a picture with you guys. And so there's 20 guys and Bert in the Atlanta airport, so excited, taking pictures with Bert. And I just looked at that group and went, Bert shook every hand and said, thank you for your service. Thank you for service to our country. Thank you so much. And I looked at this group of kids and they all looked like Billy Fisher.
Yeah.
They were so young.
So young.
And they're going to sign up for 4 years to just give their life to serve and protect. It was just such a humbling.
I love when you're in on an airline or something when a group of military comes in and everybody applauds.
Yeah.
And I do feel like that's one thing that our country is unified on.
Yes.
Is our support for our troops. I've never seen anyone be like, I hate our troops. Like
No.
never heard that or
No.
seen that. Because it is such a selfless act and the sacrifice is enormous. And it's very emotional as an American that these people put their lives on the line and at such a young age and leave their, as a mother, I can't even imagine.
No.
I cannot even imagine. But that is one thing I think that we are unified on is our support for our troops.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always am very humbled when I see
Yeah.
somebody in a uniform.
Me too.
And I always say thank you.
Yeah.
And even to firemen, if I see them shopping at the grocery store, I'm like, thank you so much for your service.
Yeah.
So I'm not running into a burning building anytime soon. So thank you very much. I can't imagine what you do.
And thanks for getting my daughter out of elevators.
I know, right? Breaking down boundaries.
Yeah, no, it is an amazing, amazing thing that these people give. And it's so, I don't even know if this qualifies as civic duty, but that I don't, feel like passionate about what my job is. I'm in sales, It's not something that I make sacrifices doing or that I feel super proud of in terms of a service I'm providing.
Yeah.
But volunteerism.
Yes.
I hardcore volunteer at the kids' schools and different organizations because I love. That I do find fulfilling.
Right.
So I find it balancing it
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I find my balance. But for these people who are policemen, firemen, our military, I wonder if they find that super fulfilling.
Oh, they would have to.
Yeah.
I don't know about military, but firemen, most firemen are firemen for life.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
go and do it for a year and go, I'm done.
Yeah.
They're there forever. They're devoted. Same with police officers.
Yeah.
Not very many police officers leave. They stay there. I think they're devoted to service and to the betterment of our community. I really believe, I'm super naive, but I don't believe a police officer goes, I'm going to become a police officer so I can beat up random people.
No.
I don't think that's what they do.
There are bad eggs, but there's bad eggs everywhere.
But they enter that with the best intention, you know? I assume best intentions.
Yes, assume best intentions.
I do. And it's such a selfless thing. I do this. I agree with you with volunteering. This community we live in has so many opportunities to volunteer. And I think that's true in probably almost every community if you look for it. You can even create it yourself. You can start a Girl Scout troop.
Right.
Or a Cub Scout troop. I believe I've always felt devoted to my little girls in that troop for that reason, that I should be a person of the community, not just, she lives down the street.
Right.
But a person that's in the community. And so funny, our little elementary school here fosters that so beautifully, with parents just really jumping in and rolling up their sleeves and getting shit done for the greater good. And we have neighbors across the street who have lived there for a long time, but their son is now in first grade. And I think their daughter is 4 years old, so probably in the 4-year-old.
The TK.
TK. And I've never seen him or his wife like hang out socially. I don't see friends coming over. But all of a sudden, I saw him running with another dad. And I went, that's what that school does.
Yeah.
Because volunteerism gets you connected with other like-minded people. Even if you don't have the same exact beliefs, you both have the belief in contributing to your community for the greater good. So no matter your politics, your religion, you both have that intention in common. So then you can foster friendships and build community from that. It's such a simple thing. But I think this elementary school is unique. I don't think every elementary school runs like this one.
Definitely not.
I don't think so. Mm-mm. And I find that to be a shame. That's really a shame, because I know both of you from that elementary school. I know Sandy and Kathy and Lynn and Sam, and all my guests, almost all of them come from that elementary school and from the experience of volunteering, not just being a parent.
Oh, yeah. I met all of those people, all of you, through volunteering.
Through volunteering, yes.
Yeah.
Because how
we don't
much,
even have same age kids.
No.
And
but it doesn't matter. When we are building the fair, everybody in every grade works to build the fair. And so then you look what I've gotten back. Yeah. That's what I keep thinking. Look what I got back.
So
from
fulfilling.
That. Not only do I know that we raised all this money to fund their education, I made so many amazing friends that give back to me every day. So that little bit of volunteering pays me back so much. And, people, I don't know if people just don't think to volunteer. I wonder.
I think people worry about time, about the commitment and the time. But I've always have felt like there was something for everybody. When I first started, when my son, who's now a junior in high school, started, I worked full time outside of the house and I couldn't be at school ever.
Right.
And I had a hard time just because my job was so demanding, finding time to do things. But I would talk to the teachers and say, what can I do from home?
Yeah.
And they would give me the packets to staple.
Yeah.
Or they would give me something that made me feel like I was contributing.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you want to do it, there's always going to be something that you can manage.
Always, yeah.
And find and do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because I don't find my job fulfilling. I find that fulfilling, and that's why I keep wanting to do more. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really really good for your heart.
Yeah.
It'll get you into heaven. I don't know about that, but it's good for your soul, I think,
yes, I
to
agree.
volunteer, to give selflessly of yourself for the greater good. What other civic duties? Is there anything not on the list that you find to be a civic duty? Volunteering is not on the list, but I agree with you. I grew up in a family that volunteered, but they didn't volunteer like, hey, I'm going to show up every week. My pop was one that if a local church needed a pavilion built, he would just host a barbecue and give all the proceeds to it. Wasn't even his church. He didn't even go to church, but he would fund things. Oh, football team needs new uniforms. Let's have a barbecue. Here's the money for the barbecue. That's how, our big factory in town caught on fire once, and our fire department is like one truck. So I remember my whole family just going to town. What can I do? Can I pull hoses? What can I do? And it's just that spirit of what needs to be done and how can I help,
Right.
And
So what is the actual definition of civic duty? What does it say?
Oh, let's see. I think I have it here. No, I don't. I didn't print that out. Hey, Siri. Hey, Siri. Oh, she's asleep. Hey, Siri. What's the definition of civic duty?
Okay, I found this on the web for Hey Siri, what's the definition?
Okay, here's what the dictionary says. Oh, well, no, never mind. That's not a definition. It's a quote. Civic responsibility. It says the responsibilities of a citizen.
So, going to what is the big issue, it seems to be the big talking points in our government now with immigration and our immigration policies. I feel like just as human beings, and so I don't, civic duty too, it is to help other people in need.
Yeah.
And were you at when we did the Friday night outside the church?
Here's
Yeah,
one.
we were out of town. Yeah.
It was so amazing, but there's a mom, one of our, a mom from our elementary school. She has two kids. One's in middle school, one's still in the elementary school, who told a story about a mom and a little girl in Guatemala, and how the mom was on a bus going to work and had her daughter with her, and the bus was stopped and they were taken off of it, and there were armed guards, and who knows what they were basically robbing people, and someone got killed. And at that moment, the mom was so terrified and so scared of losing her little girl that she, at that point, made the decision to risk everything and come to the United States, because she couldn't. Every day she was scared of being killed, or her little girl being killed, and she was not making it, and having to take her little girl to work every day. And she told this crazy story, because so many people, I think, have this misconception of that, like, they're just trying to come to the United States and take our jobs, like, they truly are not surviving.
Right.
That's how desperate they are.
Yeah.
So she told this story, and come to find out, she said, I was the little girl.
Oh my God.
So, and she's now an immigration attorney.
Wow.
So she came to the United States as a little girl with her mom, who risked everything, left her family, came with her mom, not only came here, became a U.S. citizen, educated, is now an immigration attorney, raising her family in our community, an amazing mom. And I was just like so blown away, because I just think that there is this misconception of that they're just coming here. Like, some people and they're criminals and rapists and all this. These are families who are desperate. That's how they're so desperate that they've heard the stories about being held in these, and they're still coming because this is better than where they're coming from.
Right.
So I do feel like it's our civic duty to help these people.
Right. Right. I understand that. I mean, that is what our country was built on.
Totally.
Right?
We are a country of immigrants.
Yes, we are a country of immigrants. One's right here in my room.
Right.
Got an immigrant right here.
So it's just like how we now turn our back. I don't understand how.
That is a really difficult issue, I think. I agree with you. I think, how do we turn our back? But I also know, I was talking to someone who went through this same system when he was a kid. He came from Israel, and he was kept in a detention center, I guess, separated from his parents, just exactly what we're explaining. But he said, to his point of view, from what's happening now, is it's the same thing he went through, except there are so many more people that the people running the facilities are overrun. They need more money and they need more people. So people are staying longer and have worse conditions because there are so many people. The system in which they're going through was the same for him. He said, I did the same thing. This is the same thing I did. I just wasn't in there for as long because there weren't so many people having to be processed through the system with the same number of employees.
Right.
So it's like having 5 employees with 50 immigrants as opposed to 5 employees with 1,000. It bottlenecks, and they can't be cared for the way that we as compassionate people go. These people are suffering. They're sitting in these detention centers in horrible conditions, which is true and accurate. So how do we then flood? I think that's his point was, what do we expect to do? We can't just flood new employees there. We don't have the funds to just flood new funds there to match what they need. How do we keep this balanced? It's a crazy time in that system, is what he was saying.
Yeah. I think there's also, it's created more panic because they are fearing our borders tightening.
Yes.
So they're even more desperate to get in.
Yes.
So there's a higher influx of people because we've created this panic now.
Yes.
Of a bigger surge.
Mm-hmm. Well, his point also was, at the time, he's older, he's our age-ish. He was like, when I was leaving Israel, my dad was a bus driver, and bombs were going off everywhere, and buses were blowing up. So we were leaving afraid also, but we also filled out our paperwork. But we went through the steps as you were supposed to go through the steps. And I don't know if that's possible for people who are, crossing the border down there, but there is a process to doing this.
Sounds like he was probably more well educated too.
Probably. But then how do you educate the people coming and go, here's how this works?
But I think there's kind of a misconception about that, because to be a refugee, it's not about filling out paperwork. If bombs are going off, or if you have gunmen coming onto your bus, or whatever the situation is that you're fleeing a scary situation, just coming to the border and declaring yourself a refugee, it's not a matter of filling out paperwork. Like, the paperwork gets filled out, but that I think what I have been up in arms about is that should not be considered a criminal act.
No, I don't think it should be. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
To be a refugee is, that everybody in this country was a refugee originally, coming here and from Europe or whatever, like from wherever, it was a brand new country and you're fleeing something. It seems a little rich that the principles that this country was founded on, which was a safe, fresh start, is suddenly being criminalized by people who are legitimately fleeing something dangerous.
Right. I don't know. It's a difficult situation to be in, to have so many people. How do you regulate that? How do you make it safe for everybody? Safe for the refugees and safe for us too. Not that they're rapists or whatever. That's not what I mean. But we have. I'm not implying this happens for everybody, but that's a lot of people to come into that town. How does the town structure that's closest to border towns? How do they maintain a balance of housing even? How do you house people? Where do they go? How do they get to where they need to go? It's just a lot of semantics. I think that to me, it seems overwhelming. That how do you deal with just the little minutia that you maybe don't think of as, I don't know anything about borders or what happens at the border, but when the man from Israel was telling me about that, I was like, oh, okay. I don't feel better necessarily about what's happening, but I understand better that this is what you went through too. It just seems to be a bit more of a bottleneck. Yeah. Now the cultural belief that this is criminal is different, and that's not okay. But how would you deal with a flood of people without the staff or the funding? How could you do that? And why aren't we then funneling staff and funding to that?
Well,
I know why, but I don't know. It's really, really terrible.
Very sad situation.
It's very sad. Every person I know that's here illegally, I know this is also, maybe I'm naive, but every person I know and have any kind of relationship with that's here illegally are kind, caring, thoughtful people that just want to work and live a safe life. They don't want to even be a burden. I think all of them would love to be a legal U.S. citizen, but are terrified of being sent home for saying, hey, I've been here for a little bit and I didn't fill out my paperwork right, And some people have lived here for years and been very responsible citizens it should be easier to go, I'd like to claim myself now,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
say, I'm here and I'm sorry. And can we start fresh? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a difficult place, I think. But yeah, I see what you're saying with our civic duty to take care of people who come here and say, I need help. That is what we were founded on, for sure. And, you know, the problem to me is, here's something that I think, this is a real soapbox for me.
Uh-oh.
I feel that news is no longer a civic duty. The news has become a business. And when I was a child, the network news made no money because the networks felt it was their civic duty to present an unbiased, fair view of what was happening in our country. So they knew that news hour was money. Nobody was making money on that hour. And that is no longer the case. And I believe now we're looking for every fantastic soundbite, extreme, insane thing we can present, which really is most of the time entertainment and not true or balanced. And I really feel like one way we could maybe start to rebuild our balance is to go back to that model of saying, nope, the news is free. Nobody tells me what to put on the news. No sponsor, no owner, nobody tells me what to
Good luck.
report on. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen, but I agree with you.
A big shift.
I agree.
That's when we started dividing, is when we had no one person that everybody, not one person.
because-
There were three major anchors. So you chose one of the three, and all three of them were pretty fair.
But you're right. A lot of the division in the country is just being fueled.
What news do you watch?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh, well, this is what they're saying on Fox News. Oh, okay,
Well, I know who you are.
yeah.
And that's unfair. That's unfair for us to assume you know who that person is because they watch Fox News. And it's unfair that they only get their information from one avenue. It's really unfair. I think that is a real root of discourse in our country. And I really think that was a loss of civic duty when they started monetizing the news. I really do. Oh my God.
I
look
was
at this.
wondering why all the pool water was coming out. I was afraid one of the chickens got in there.
Because there was a
something.
whale.
Oh my God, because it was squirting out the side over here.
Bert was swimming.
That's hilarious.
Going as good as you thought it would.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a laugh riot.
I was really excited for this one. Yeah,
Okay.
I was. We're almost done.
Almost done. It's been class.
Did you?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have gone.
I know I shouldn't have gone.
You have a cold. Stupid. He has a really bad sinus infection. I was like, you should not go to spin class. Oh, I'm going. Almost died.
Oh.
A man who lives by his hyperbole. I almost died. This is insane. Best night ever. I mean, can we go on and on and on? You are amazing. Best thing I've ever eaten in my entire life. That's everything.
Those tacos Saturday night were pretty damn good.
They were really good, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, it's my civic duty to serve everybody good tacos.
Yes. Can you make that your civic duty more often?
That was really good.
That was really good.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about with civic duty?
No, I think,
To get it all?
yeah.
Taxes.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. You have to pay your taxes.
Pay 'em.
Why wasn't that listed? Participate in the democratic process. I guess taxes is part of that.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a longer list that I didn't read.
I was going to say, don't even get me started on taxes. I just keep going back to the one person. I pay my taxes. Fair
I
and
pay my
square.
taxes too. Let's
But
see. Here's the longer list
The
from
wealthy
U.S.
are always, the
citizenship.
really wealthy are always trying to get out of paying their taxes.
I agree. And you know, I have to tell you something. Taxes are painful when you have to pay them.
Yeah.
We have been very fortunate in recent years that we have done pretty well. And at the end of the year, when they tell us how much we owe in taxes, I almost fall off the couch. I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? That's like someone's salary. That's insane. But everybody has to pay their taxes. And you know, the thing is, I think about what we're paying for, right? When we pay for taxes, we're paying for police, we're paying for fire, we're paying for so many things that I don't even know exists, that I don't even think about. You have to pay your taxes. Yeah. That's another thing I think too. I wonder how to fix that. How to fix that the rich don't pay their taxes. That needs to be fixed.
Well, it needs
Well,
to be
it's
fixed
not
to
going to
the-
get fixed by this
we,
guy.
we are not in the 1%.
He won't even
by
show
any
us
means.
his taxes.
I know.
So the rich definitely find their ways of getting around, and that's obviously a big difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is taxes. I mean, read my lips, no new taxes, right? That was like the whole Republican platform,
Oh, here's the
which
responsibility.
is impossible because
So there were citizens' rights and responsibilities. Here's your responsibility as a citizen. Support and defend the Constitution. Stay informed of the issues affecting your community. Participate in the democratic process. Respect and obey federal, state, and local laws. Respects the rights, beliefs, and opinions of others. Participate in your local community. Participate in your local
So that could be the
community.
volunteerism.
Yes, I think so. Pay income and other taxes honestly and on time to federal, state, and local authorities. Serve on a jury when called upon. Defend the country if the need should arise. Your rights, because you have taken care of your responsibilities, they allow you the right to have the freedom to express yourself, the freedom to worship as you wish, the right to prompt, fair trial by jury, the right to vote in elections for public officials, the right to apply for federal employment requiring U.S. citizenship, the right to run for elected office, and to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So to earn your rights, right, you have to fulfill your responsibilities. So everybody vote in this next election. Everybody. I would love to see what it would look like if everybody voted.
I know.
That would be so powerful. It would be such like almost a religious moment, I think, even though state and religion are separated. To me, it would be such a spiritual movement type moment to have everybody stand up and vote. That would be so powerful. And pay your taxes. I think we all pay our taxes. But I know a certain person who has never paid his taxes ever in his entire adult life, and he is my age.
What?
And I go, what are you? How do you sleep at night? The lack of ethics involved in never
So they just
paying
find shady ways of getting around it.
has never filed. So don't file, and is self-employed and pays cash for all cars and finds a landlord that will write a lease without doing any kind of credit check. Doesn't have a credit card.
Wow.
He's just asking to go to jail.
Yeah. I couldn't sleep at night.
No.
But then what do you do when it's time for you to draw Social Security? Nothing, because you've paid nothing in. But I guarantee you he'll sign up right before it's time and get it all figured out and rectified and draw Social
But
Security.
I mean, you're driving on roads that are getting
that you pay for
yeah,
or you haven't
I mean,
paid for.
No, you haven't paid for it. Yeah.
It's deplorable.
Or
It's
the
a
police
terrible
may have
thing.
to save your life someday.
Or an
Yeah.
ambulance may have to take you to hospital. Or,
Yeah.
you know, he's been to the hospital in an emergency and doesn't have insurance and can't pay for it. And you're like, dude, step up your game a little bit. Be a responsible.
Be an adult.
Be part of this community that is our whole country. Take care of your civic responsibilities so that you can have your civic rights, right?
It feels like civic responsibilities in a nutshell are just caring about beyond yourself, basically. Because if you didn't care about anybody else, then maybe you wouldn't care about paying taxes because you'd be like, okay, whatever, we'll just figure this out.
Doesn't affect me.
Doesn't affect me. But
I'll just ride off everybody else's coattail. Thanks for my street. Thanks for my police officer.
They've been working on your street a lot lately too.
It's the gas company.
Oh,
The gas company's doing something major on our street for like 6 months. It's going to be awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, we've had some kind of minor gas. Like every once in a while, you just smell gas and they can't find it.
Oh.
ooh,
They're like, nope, everything's safe.
All right. Anyways.
Okay.
See you later. I'm hoping they're rectifying that. It's been happening since we lived here 9 years later.
Oh,
we haven't blown up,
Okay.
so hopefully.
all
Yeah,
right.
okay,
Jeannie and I are
yeah.
creeping out.
We're
of-
good.
All
off
right.
the premises.
Don't light a cigarette.
That's a
On
wrap.
your way out.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to vote. We're going to pay our taxes. We're going to volunteer. What else are we going to do? We're going to vaccinate our kids if that's within our belief system.
Yes.
And I hope it's in everybody's belief system. We're going to thank every military,
Serve on a jury.
serve on a jury happily. with
Yeah.
positivity.
Yeah. Don't bitch about it.
Don't bitch about it.
Don't try to get out of it.
Don't try to get
Don't
out
try
of
any of
it.
that shady behavior because
Just
we see it.
get it done.
The judge sees it. Everybody gets it.
Everybody gets it. Anyway, maybe if
we
people
can make this place a better place.
maybe we can if we just go back to the beginning and take care of our civic duties. Then maybe we can balance the shit show that has been going on for a while now in Washington. Maybe. Grassroots, baby.
Yeah.
There we go.
I know.
Leanne's got
I'm
all
done.
the answers.
And
She's done.
I'll be running for office. No, I'm joking. Thank you guys for talking about it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course. It's
Anytime.
our civic duty.
Fulfilled for the day. Your civic duty is fulfilled.